We will move on to our next session, and we have Liz Weaver, who will be talking with us. And to introduce Liz, we have Carille Mendoza, and the Director of Product Management at Help Seeker Technologies, based in Calgary. And Help Seeker's been a real friend of the Center for Social Impact Technology, and Alina sits on our advisory board. So Carille, I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Geoff. So I have the great pleasure of introducing someone very much smarter than me. So Liz Weaver is the co-CEO of the Tamarack Institute and leading the Tamarack Learning Centre. So the Tamarack Learning Centre advances community change efforts by focusing on 5 strategic areas, including collective impact, collaborative leadership, community engagement, community innovation, and evaluating community impact. So Liz is well known for her thought leadership on collective impact and is the author of several papers on the topic. She is a co-catalyst partner for the Collective Impact Forum and a co-founding partner of the Canadian Centre for Nonprofit Digital Resilience. Liz is passionate about the power of communities getting to impact on social issues. So with that, I would like to introduce Liz.
Thank you so much, Carille. And hi, everybody. Wow, some really powerful speakers this afternoon in Ontario, where I'm joining you from, the traditional territories of the Huron-Wendat, Erie Neutral, and Haudenosaunee peoples, also Hamilton, Ontario. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Canadian Centre for Nonprofit Digital Resilience. And in many ways, we're on a similar journey as the journey of the Centre for Social Impact Technology. And it's kind of interesting to me, having just listened to David and to Bianca, because in many ways, the design of Cinder, which is easier to wrap your tongue around, the design of Cinder is very democratized. It's very much bringing folks from different sectors together to talk about, how do we create this or increase the nonprofit digital resilience in Canada. And so that's really the kind of big thinking behind it. I'm going to take you through a PowerPoint. I know it's kind of probably challenging at this time of the day, but yeah, I'll just do it. And just give you a little bit of the thinking in the background. Some of you will, I know that there are some of you on the call who are folks that have already signed up as folks that are part of the network or are supportive of the network, and we're very appreciative of that. And also want to acknowledge that the Centre for Social Impact Technology is part of this work. So really excited about that. We have founding partners, of which the organization I work for is a founding partner, but you can see the other partners on the screen. And this is actually a fairly recent initiative as well, quite similar to, the work that's happening in Alberta and in Calgary specifically. And I think, all of us, I'm going to go through these slides really quickly, but we all know what the need is, right? The need is that the world, and we've heard this from lots of the speakers today and yesterday, but the world is getting increasingly digital. We know that. And this impacts the nonprofit sector significantly in terms of digital capacity and digital ability to deliver more effectively the services and programs that are being delivered in communities across Canada. And so we have to kind of wrap our minds around this. And if we, really think about our digital capacity and really kind of focus on it from a nonprofit perspective, using technology enables better outcomes for the clients that we're serving, the people in the communities that we're supporting, and achieves a whole bunch of other kinds of outcomes. But we're seeing that, nonprofits are not keeping up with the pace of change. Some of this is lack of digital literacy. Some of it might be capacity within the nonprofit sector. You know, there are some real interesting surveys that have been published by a number of partners, including Canada Helps, which really said, you know, this decline in financial resources. And we just heard from Bianca, you know, there is no magic tap that is going to provide the resources that we need. So nonprofits, we know, are not adopting digital tech at a pace or scale that other sectors in Canada are. And this comes out of the Canada Help survey. So only a quarter of nonprofits rate their knowledge of software very good. 54% don't have enough funding, and 38% have integrated technology. So yeah, it is a challenge that the sector is facing, and we also know that it's a workforce challenge for those of us that are engaged in the sector. And so the reality is that increasingly digital skill set, the digital skill set is going to be critical for the workforce of the future. And you know, at Tamarack, we're seeing that quite significantly. One of the initiatives that we support is Communities Building Youth Futures Initiative, working with about 20 communities across Canada, really trying to take a whole of community approach to support young people in their journey through high school graduation into post-secondary education, employment, and training. And some of the communities that we work with are, you know, small, remote, and Indigenous communities. And a piece of research that we published recently was called The Future of Work, and the expectations of young people and the private sector are different when it comes to the future of work, and yet both really recognize digital literacy and access as critical components or critical ingredients to the future of work. The one thing that we have seen in terms of the nonprofit sector is how investment happens, particularly in digital resiliency in the nonprofit sector. So you can see, you know, how the government is investing in SME digital transformation, and that's great. How they're investing in their own digital transformation, particularly at the federal government level, but at the nonprofit level, just is non-existent. And it really is looked upon nonprofits to build their own digital competencies and to invest in their digital resilience and sustainability. And for, you know, if you look at the segmentation of the nonprofit sector, there are lots of nonprofits that are, you know, small based budgets. And so this can be a real strain on their budget and their overall structural capacity. So what we know is that, you know, we can't stand still. So that was really the impetus behind the coming together of the founders and the invitation out to the sector to form this Canadian Centre for Nonprofit Digital Resilience was really this idea. And I think it's the reason why you're also doing the work at the Centre for Social Impact Technology is like, we can't stand still. We have to engage in these conversations. We have to be purposeful in how we look at the sector. And from our perspective at Cinder, it's really engaging key partners in this work to really co-create it together, co-design it, co-think it. And so a lot of what Bianca was just talking about are some of the principles that really inform the design of the Canadian Centre. So we realized that we needed a sector approach. And so we're really looking at this as, you know, the work is really to engage in conversations in a way that creates a more digitally enabled sector. Some of the great points that we see in the ecosystem is that there's less vendor lock-in, that technology is cheaper and more accessible. We're seeing increasing integration of applications and data and use of cloud and no and low code computing. What we also really see as a potential for the sector and for the center and for also your center is this kind of co-creation, this dynamic of really coming together, vendors, nonprofits, funders, other folks in a way that says, hey, this is what the sector needs, the nonprofit sector needs. And here are, vendors who are aligned with it, foundations and other investors, government who might want to invest in it, and opportunities to co-create and co-design together. So a digitally optimized nonprofit is looks like this, right? It's connected, it's tech enabled, and it has some of that automation, but it really does understand that digital is a part of the work, and the digital is an enabler of delivering, on your mission and on your output. And this comes from the thinking of NetHope, their Center for Digital Nonprofits. And there's some examples, there's some leading examples in Canada. Certainly, Help Seeker is a leading example of this work, but Kids Help Phone is also a really good example where they're using artificial intelligence and machine learning to triage calls that are coming in and making sure that when the calls come in, those that have a higher risk factor go to the front of the line, and the other calls are then stacked behind them. And Second Harvest, we've heard lots of different kind of examples, but Second Harvest created an app that enabled businesses to donate their surplus food. So these are two examples, but there are lots of examples in the sector. And part of what we need to do, I think, through both of our centers is to lift up these examples to understand how they work and how they're accessed, and then to think about, could they be prototypes? Could the technology be shared? What are some of the opportunities and the limitations connected to them? We have been around really quite a very short period of time. The kickoff was in 2021. So here we are, slightly at the end of 2022. But the kickoff was Katie from the CIO Strategy Council doing a presentation and writing an article in the Future of Goods Summit called Dismantling Digital Barriers. And I connected with her and I said, Katie, this is exciting. I would like to kind of support this work whatever way we can. And so from that kind of initial coming together of the two of us, we brought in other partners, engaged in a number of conversations across the sector, co-created the Canadian Centre for Nonprofit Digital Resilience, and really tested some ideas and are continuing to build and evolve. So just as Bianca said, you need to revisit decisions over and over again. We're continually revisiting decisions and really thinking about, okay, so how is this entity that we've created, this co-designed entity, how is it moving forward? How is it evolving? And what does it look like? So I'll tell you a little bit about that in the next couple of minutes. So we have 7 co-founders that are involved. We have 184 advisors, at least that was the most recent count, and then 156 supporters. And advisors are individuals who represent a diversity of sectors who are wanting to engage in the co-creation and the thinking, and the supporters are organizations from, again, different sectors, including nonprofits, vendors, and funders who are supportive of this work and willing to put their organizational context behind the work. So it's a small kind of founding group, but a large network of folks that are engaged in a whole variety of different ways. We really, our working principles are really thinking about partnership and how do we grow partnerships. And so the advisors that are involved in the work are now engaged in different working groups and are really kind of creating the design and also leading out on some of the early pieces of work for the Canadian Centre for Nonprofit Digital Resilience. We're trying to keep it as simple as possible, to keep it as agile as possible. And we really want to remain accountable to the entire community of advisors and organizers. And so we do that primarily through newsletters and our LinkedIn, but we also convene on a regular basis the entire group or those of those advisors and organizations that want to be engaged in, one area of focus or another. These are the kind of core focus areas that we're looking at in terms of readiness. And this comes again out of NetHope's thinking. So you can see we're not creating brand new, we're leveraging really good thinking that's already out there. So around readiness, around investment, data, we've heard a lot about data around the people. How do we upskill? Where are the opportunities to increase capacity within the nonprofit sector, and particularly digital knowledge and digital skills and capacity, and then process. And this is kind of what it looks like. So we've got 9 areas of focus and different working groups that are really trying to advance work in these different areas. We asked our advisors what was important to them, and you can see motivation is number one, the creation of shared platforms, all the way down to cybersecurity in terms of what advisors identified as critical issues to them. How we do the work is we convene these working groups that because we're just like in the real first year of this work, we take a double diamond approach, right? Which for those of you that really know about social innovation, it's really convening people together, exploring the topic, and then trying to come to consensus on how you frame that topic, then creating some options, and then catalyzing work moving forward. So we really see it as kind of a process where, again, groups and individuals are really engaged in thinking about these topics, bringing their knowledge, their wisdom, their capacity, and their skills to this work. So where are we? So we had an official launch earlier this year, March 29th. So we're really in the first year. We have 130,000 in-kind investments, but we also have a number of funders who have stepped up to the plate and are supporting the work, and in conversation with some other funders. The co-founder team meets weekly. So, Bianca talked about these regular and ongoing conversations. So our commitment is to keep the momentum going and to keep the work going forward. But beyond the co-founders, we've had all these other meetings with key players within the digital system in Canada, the digital ecosystem in Canada, really trying to understand the landscape and trying to situate where the Canadian Centre for Nonprofit Digital Resilience might sit within that landscape. So lots and lots of meetings. There are 16 prototypes underway. We just yesterday launched a paper, a final report on cybersecurity. We've hosted webinars. We're participating in and thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in sessions like this and other sessions. We have 7 working groups, and we're able to launch our website. So a lot has been done in a very short period of time, and we're really excited about the potential, right? Both the potential of working more collaboratively with your center, but also the potential of building the digital infrastructure and the digital capacity, particularly for nonprofit organizations across Canada. That's the end goal, because we know when we do that, that all of us will be better off because not the nonprofit sector will be better able to deliver on its promise, its mission, its outcomes, and better serve people across Canada. So I'm going to throw it back to you, Geoff.
Great. Well, thanks so much. It's really exciting to see the launch earlier this year than all the activity. So yeah, I'm on the list and get the newsletters and all the invites. So it's somewhat overwhelming, but it's fantastic to see. I think we're at a point, I think, where we are getting a fair bit of traction for these ideas about the importance of technology as an enabler for positive social change. And I think one question would be, how can we better sort of work together with these initiatives to make sure we're kind of not duplicating, right? Like we only have so much time and energy and funding, and we do see the same areas, but we want to sort of accelerate and compound our impact, like 1 + 1 = 3 or 4, right? As opposed to getting into kind of duplication. So like, are there better ways for us to understand what's happening across the country, and how can we come together to have that more positive accelerating effect and not duplicating?
That is such a good question. At Tamarack, we've been thinking a lot about this role of field catalysts, right? So who are these folks that are trying to catalyze a field of expertise in one area, or a field of like partners, or a field like we try to do it at Tamarack in some of the work that we do around ending poverty and climate transitions. And I wonder, Geoff, if an idea might be to look at both who you're connected to, groups like Help Seeker and others, and think about who are the field catalysts, and then how do we create those regular points of intersection with field catalysts, right? So we can exchange, share knowledge, share research, continue to identify both opportunities and also some of the challenges that we're facing, and really avoid that duplication. I think that's where my mind would go. So could we, in this process, and could we at the center kind of think about convening a smaller group of these field catalysts, and who might they be? And I'd love to leave today with, a task of maybe working with your center and really thinking about, okay, so how do we collaborate on that, and then bring that forward and co-create that together?
Yeah, fantastic. We'd love to do that. I mean, we kind of see that as one of our roles, is to help to be that connector, right? But we ourselves, of course, are not connected to everybody, and not as much connected as some of the other organizations that are involved in your initiative. So let's put that as a tangible action items coming out of this discussion, that we'll get together, have a collaboration, and try to take action on that. And I think there's a Canadian context to that, which we're absolutely interested in. But as we've seen today, there's an international aspect of that as well, right? So, people, like David Polgar at All Tech is Human, and other groups that are out there internationally, the Public Interest Technology, and and while you can't connect everybody, and to have a group of 50 people is sometimes not the right way to go. I think we can maybe start smallish, and then kind of expand it out as it happens. But I think it is a gap that's kind of out there right now, that there's the word silo comes up time and time again in many different contexts, and I'm not suggesting that we're doing that. I think that there is a lot of collaboration, but I do see it as an opportunity for some of that more kind of macro level. And I think your terminology around field catalyst is fantastic. And we've actually been kind of introduced to that term, and I know James Stotch at the Institute for Community Prosperity was actually using that term to help describe what we want to accomplish. So,
we have already learned from colleagues in the UK and in Australia where they're investing in social impact technology as well. So there you can learn a lot from others. And one of our founding partners is an organization in the US called N10, and you had Amy speak today, Amy and Afua, and rather than design all sorts of new training programs and that kind of thing, can we collaborate more effectively and bring their resources or figure out, what's the Canadian spin on that, right? And so, there's a global footprint of networks and field catalysts that are doing this work. And so, I think it's good to build out the Canadian ecosystem, but also link into some of these international players who might be ahead of us or also might be emerging in some cases.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, kind of through doing that, we can kind of find our niche, right? Where, a lot of the things that you're doing, I mean, it's fantastic. And a lot of the traction that you have, it would be silly for us to try to kind of do that over again. And there's maybe areas where we're working around things like ethics and transparency and engagement that we can sort of specialize in a little bit and kind of bring to the table as well.
Perfect.
I see there was some comments and questions a little bit around, and you kind of mentioned sort of shareable technology as one of your outcomes, and the comment is around sort of like open source and sort of freely accessible type of software and platforms. And there's a little bit of a distinction there, right, between shareable and free or open source. And I think there's room for both, in that there does have to be a business model here, right? Mm-hmm. Because if there's not a business model, there's no sustainability.
Yeah.
So maybe just a comment on that kind of dynamic.
I think you're right. And we heard that from Bianca as well, right? Bianca had some really interesting thoughts that she shared around governance and around business models and things like that, that I think you have to pay attention to. But, the reality is that many funders are investing in similar kinds of things, right, in different nonprofit organizations, nonprofit and charitable organizations. And so, to what degree can you create a business model that also creates some shareable content, right? So, for example, N10 does need to sell some of its courses. So there is a business model there, but to what degree can we have a larger number of potential purchasers of those courses that actually brings the price down, right? So, I think technology is really interesting in that way, right? The more users, the cost per use, you can probably decrease the availability and the usability of it. So I think we need to be thinking about, where are those, we need to get a better sense of the ecosystem and where those innovations are happening, and can they, be scaled in any kind of way. And that's equally true for the whole ecosystem, but also folks that are nonprofit vendors, right? How many organizations have their own databases that, someone was hired to design for them, and then as they scale and grow as an organization, that database doesn't work for them anymore, right? Yeah. And then they have to invest in something else. And so, are there opportunities in those kinds of experiences with the scope and scale and the number of nonprofits and charities in Canada? There is probably already a lot of investment and duplication, and could be an opportunity for those vendors who can provide the sector with better solutions than they exist right now. And I think when we think about things like data privacy, cybersecurity tools, those kinds of things that are emerging, rather than have individualized solutions, can there be sector size solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. Huge opportunities here. Well, thanks so much, Liz, for your insights and telling us about the Centre for Nonprofit Digital Resilience. It's really exciting, and we're looking forward to future collaboration. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
So we've come to the end of our day 2 and our online digital portion here. Huge thank you to all the speakers. It's just been amazing, the insights that have been generated here today, and for all the introducers as well, and thanks for all of you for attending. These sessions have been recorded and kind of will be repurposed and available through the center's website as we go forward. So we're thrilled with what's happened over the last couple of days, and our commitment is to maintain the momentum, to try to be a connector to all of you. There was a comment in the chat about we over the 2 days we just covered so much, right? And there's just so much we could do. There's so many issues, there's so many directions, and we kind of recognize that going into the morning of the first day. And we've been looking for your insights, for your commentary, and please provide your ideas and comments as this event closes. We'll be processing kind of all of this and trying to look at the pieces and come up with a bit of a consolidation of that, and some ideas around where we could go, kind of build a bit of a roadmap, right? Which looks at priorities. We can't do everything. We know that, and we'll fail if we try to. So we need to parse it out. I think knowing what our focus areas are and making sure we're not duplicating is really important to being successful. So thanks to everybody that's been involved. I'll turn it over to Drew to provide some final comments.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I did just want to say a quick thank you for our MCs today. Thank you, Geoff and James, for leading us through today. And for everyone else, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you were able to join yesterday, all the better. Really appreciated the time and the conversations over the last few days. If you have questions or questions that didn't get answered today, please feel free to send them my way. I'll toss my email in the chat, but you can always reach us at info@centerforsocialimpacttech.ca, and I'll make sure that that's available moving forward. You should get an email in the next few hours here with a little bit of post-event information. Please continue to connect with us. We've got an event upcoming on November 24th. It is hybrid. If you're available to join, it'd be great. We've got Tech Stewardship and RSA Canada. And again, I'd just like to thank our sponsors for helping us to put on today. Great opportunity for us to share some of the things that are going on, and as Geoff says, a really great opportunity for us to check in on all of the intentions, the time, and conversations that we're able to have. So thank you so much for your time again, and we look forward to connecting with you as we move forward. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye now. Take care.